over.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to bring this month's meeting of the Support Services Committee to order. We'll start by approving the minutes of the last Support Services Committee meeting. Motion made by Supervisor McGowan, second by Supervisor Wild. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We have a long agenda since we're going to be reviewing the budget for each department. We'll start with Board of Elections. If you would go, please. Since Carla isn't here.
That's awesome, because we have to be somewhere at 10 anyway.
So this is a budget meeting?
So perfect.
So this, you did say no the whole time, right?
If you have some place to go so quick and you're just testing your paperwork out now.
Well, I didn't want to get it all.
You didn't want to give it out.
Everybody else's. Hopefully you all got an email, except you. I got yours kicked back.
I got it.
I'm working on that.
Yeah, yours got kicked back to me, but it should have went out Friday afternoon.
Is it a
That's
demo?
on my thing, I got some
No, this is
emails
just
tonight.
well, it is, because we got it late Friday afternoon. What's that?
I got a purge, and they only let me purge 50 at a time, so I called them and said, can you just dump everything?
It got kicked,
Can't do that anymore, they said. I'm like,
kicked back to me.
oh, it takes forever, so every time I get, I get rid of 1,000, and they're back the next day.
Before we start, just make a note, I was just reminded, no action required by the committee. You can review and make recommendations to the budget officer. That's what we're going to be doing today. Go ahead.
We did add something to our agenda, though, besides the budget. During our conference, we had a training class with NTS, and we saw this great system that they had called ScanFlow. We have what's called Sign It now, which we are able to do our work and scan it, so we're pretty much paperless. We save our registrations for 2 years and recycle and that. With the ScanFlow, there is an additional cost. So we're asking to have our agreement with NTS amended. They are willing to install it this year, charge us for 2020 $1,500 less, and then 2021, 22, 23, it would be the full amount of $4,950. And what this is actually, we feel very important moving into 2020. In 2016, our year in review, some of you were here, some of you were not, just to refresh, we processed 4,232 registrations. Of that, 1,821 were received between August 1st and October 14th. So it's a lot of paperwork, and we feel now so much is electronic, DMV is electronic, agencies, state board, etc. We feel that it's, we're going to have a lot more registrations moving into next year. With this workflow, we are able to scan every piece of paper and dump them into folders that, absentees could be separate, new registrations could be separate, inspectors' information can be in a folder, and then we can sign, and Bill and I can also watch those folders in either help with the work or to make sure that we have somebody on the job to double check those absentees. And we are bipartisan. Everything we do is checked between both parties, and this also helps that. The work is completed by one person, dumps it into a folder for the other person to double check. And very important, again, with absentees moving into next year, because it's a lot of information. We just want to make sure those go on in a timely fashion to the correct mailing addresses. So, kind of in a nutshell, that's what ScanFlow is.
And for our 2020 budget, this will be in our 2020 budget because of the VRA system that we got a few years ago, which was leading into the electronic poll books, is no longer going to be part of it. So that was figured into our 2020 budget. For the 2021 budget, as we move on and move into the following year, we spoke with the administrator and we've talked and we've agreed to take a look at our, in our budget, you'll see a part-time budget line, and it's for $22,000. We will take a look at that in 2021, but also remember in 2021, our budget that you're seeing took a substantial increase for 2020. Our budget will recede back in 2021. The only reason the big increase in 2020 is you've got 3 elections, you got 2 primaries and a general. You're going to have early voting hours and more labor hours. 2021, we lose that one primary, that will reduce our budget down considerably. But this is something we just learned about at the conference in Saratoga. And as Beth said, as it stands right now, our deputies are the ones that do most of this paperwork, most of the registrations, most of the DMV, most of the coming out of social services now. We get all this stuff that comes in digital. And Beth and I, unless we get into our deputies' computer, we can't see what they're actually working on and what they've got going. With this system, it becomes more of an administrative system as well. It gives us the ability to get into these folders, see what needs to be done, see what hasn't been done, see where we're lagging, and we have the ability now to open this folder and work on it ourselves. There'll be 4 basically administrators to this system, and it'll be Beth and I and Shannon and Kim. We'll be the only ones that will be able to get into this. So for the 1,500 hours that you'll see that was reduced in 2020 was a $15 basically refund that we got back from BRA because we're not going to be using their BRA for the November election. We'll be using the electronic poll book, so we got a $1,500 credit from the company, and we applied that to the first year of the SCAMFlow.
Any questions? Supervisor McGowan?
So what we, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So actually, from what I understand, this is not a new, it's a new system, but it's not a new fee.
It's an upgrading software from NTS.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's question 1. So really, and we're getting the $1,500 back, so thanks for the answer. My next question is for Mike. Mike, how are we doing for storage? Because I hear more files are coming your way, files.
We're doing very well. The last month we had tourism on device, we're setting that up, that frees up more space. We're upgrading our device now because of that move, so we're great for space.
Now, we're not doing anything with the cloud or anything yet,
No.
right? Okay. All right, just, thank you. That's all.
Supervisor Wild?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Sorry, Ben.
That's fine.
Hey, just to follow up, the data that's being stored electronically now, is there any kind of security that has to be applied to this data? Are we talking about social security numbers and things like that? Do we have to make sure that this stuff is held in a secure environment?
I know the State Board of Elections, I know Warren County, wasn't a grant, but we received, maybe it was a grant, received money from New York State Board of Elections for cybersecurity that Mike, and I look at Mike because Mike has been working with the state and giving us into, when you get into that stuff,
That's what
maybe Mike can answer that better as far as the security end of it.
Yes, we have our whole normal security, but then
Yeah.
with the part the state just paid for was specific monitoring of all the board elections for access and anything that's plugged into, so that's additional monitoring and all that stuff in all the files.
So no big issues going forward with that?
So now.
Thank you, Mike.
Driscoll?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You've disseminated information about the early voting and flyers and online stuff and everything else in the newspapers. Are you starting to get bombarded with phone calls and visits and all that type of stuff?
Not yet, our absentees are being stuffed as we speak right now. Hopefully they'll get out in the mail today, and then we'll start publicizing more for over-the-counter voting. And then beginning of October, I know Bill called a lot of newspapers on Thursday. We'll have some public notices in
Radio.
the Chronicle, Lake George Mirror, the Sun, Post-Star, and then radio. So, that's October 26th. We have a little bit of time.
We were on with WCKM.
You prepared for it?
Yes, we were on with
Yeah.
WCKM.
Okay.
Went in on the early mornings, or it was WWSC, and spent 2 mornings with them discussing the early voting and how it's going and everything else. It looks like it's really getting out there, and as we said before, Region 2 came together, and I think there's 11 counties in Region 2, came together, so all 11 counties have the same early voting hours. So anywhere you go within those 11 counties, it's the same hours that each county is going to be open. So, thanks.
Not too many inquiries yet, but
Okay, and I'd like to have a motion to approve this funding request. Motion made by Supervisor Wild, second by Supervisor McGowan. Further questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Proceed, please. Oh, just one note. Supervisor Hogan, we're going to be looking at all the budgets today for each department. No action is going to be necessary. It's just a review process. And we can give recommendations to Supervisor Thomas.
I didn't know if there was any questions on our budget. I think we explained why the increase for 2020, and hopefully, without doubt, we'll bring it back down 2021.
You'll see an increase in 439 miscellaneous, and that's where we pay our inspectors out of that money. And then a little bit of increase in 410 for printing of ballots with the third election.
And that was a review of your budget? I kind of went into it, I didn't even get a chance to get...
We don't know if there was any other questions, if there's any other questions on it. I mean, it hasn't changed a lot other than those two codes, and that's the explanation of those two codes. The 2020 three-time election, or two primaries and a general, presidential that we all know is going to be pretty contentious, that we expect to see a lot of voters out. It's going to be our first time running early voting, so I guess it's kind of, we think we got it right, type deal. We won't know until it happens.
Okay, any further questions for Board of Elections?
Not to belabor it, but we are going from, $75,000 to $140,000. We're almost doubling.
Right,
And
with
what
three
we did-
elections for our inspectors, an average is $33,690 to pay our inspectors. Now, primaries are the 16 hours now, so times three, that's $101,000 just right there for those three elections to pay our inspectors.
And what we did to get that figure, Mike, is what we did, or Supervisor Well, is we went back, and Beth
2016.
actually went back to 2016, took the hourly rate, the increase of early voting hours, the increase of the primary from where it used to be from noon to 9, it's now from 6 a.m. in the morning till 9 at night. And
Our budget in 16, we spent $87,576.
that was prior to early voting, and
So this is typically this big cycle
Yeah.
that we go through.
correct, for the presidential year.
It makes sense.
Or Supervisor Ryan? Mr. Moore?
At 410, the $60,000, can you just break that down a little bit, the supplies?
That most of it is our ballots printing. And again, we don't know, it's hard to tell. I think this year with early voting, we'll kind of get a guesstimate of how much less ballots we can order next year. I think we're going to get more of a turnout in early voting moving into next year than this year. And then with early voting, we just have to buy ballot paper versus printed ballots. And then more mailing. We'll have absentees 3 times, ordering the absentees, and then the printed ballots again for Election Day.
And the only way that we're able to order ballots, to be quite frank with you, and how we figure how to order them, is we take a couple hours out of the day and we'll go back and we'll look at how many we ordered the year before. We try to guesstimate as to what the increase is going to be from one year to the next year and add a percentage to that, and that's the only way that we're really able to...
In 2016, we had a 77% turnout for the general election. So, I mean, we're going to be ordering 100% ballots probably.
So we're trying to
November.
guesstimate the percentage of turnout.
How much used to come out of here for the printed poll books?
That was
Is this-
in the NTS contract.
Oh, it's in NTS,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
And all we did, and just back quickly, NDS, and all we did is, we asked them, the second sheet of paper you got from us that wasn't attached, is we asked them to amend the original contract, adding that figure in there so that we didn't have to start all over again and have the contract reviewed and all that other. We asked them to amend it with that additional amount for scan flow in it. And that's why you're getting the second piece there. That came in late Friday afternoon.
Supervisor McGowan, just by a second. Supervisor Lyle?
No, I have a question.
Yes.
Oh.
Supervisor McGowan?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so that was on supplies, and then down here you have miscellaneous fees and expenses.
That's our inspector.
That's our inspectors.
All right, so that's just the, okay, that's the miscellaneous, all right. We can't have a line item for like inspectors.
Vendors, actually.
Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. For the budget officer, Frank, if we have this cyclical load, you know, so to speak, on our budget for the presidential elections, is there a way to put a reserve in there so that we have more of a level budget? You know, because we're basically doubling 150 grand. So could we put away like, I don't know, 30 grand or 40 grand a year to kind of just level load this?
Well, we'll sample.
You'd probably see that max out every 4 years.
Right,
Like
right.
you said, I mean, every 4 years, you'll see that spike. And then it'll go back down for the 3, and it'll spike again, and so on.
I'm just thinking, in leaner times, it might be more difficult to come up with that some odd $1,000.
Right.
I don't know if that's something we can
And
do.
we'll have a
but-
better grasp of, you know,
Yeah.
the early voting going into next year also.
I think it's a great thought, great idea. I think it's for future planning, it'd be a great thing, but like we said, after this year, once we get done with the early voting and the presidential race, we'll be able to give you some concrete numbers that you'll be able to work with better.
Let's try to think about that next year after this wonderful experience next year.
Supervisor Hogan, did you have a question? Oh, I saw your hand. No. Okay, Supervisor McGowan.
You waiting?
Yes, Mike, if I remember correctly, at a previous meeting when we were looking for money for the new early voting machines, you know, and it was taking it out of the reserve for the voting machines, I was kind of like, let's not do that, and I was kind of overrode and voted to, you know, do you remember that? And now you're asking them, you know, come on.
Well, it's not a voting machine.
Well, no, but I mean, I'm just saying, this is why we have the reserve, so.
Any further questions? All right, thank you, folks. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
IT next.
I'm moving on.
Find his...
I'm moving.
More.
Sorry, man,
The airport.
Mr. Colvin, go ahead.
Before the budget part, I actually have 2 resolution requests. The first is to increase our internet speed to extend our contract with Spectrum from 100 megabits to 200 megabits. Right now, we're doing good with our internet speed. Some more departments are having requirements to work over the internet, so trying to keep ahead of it instead of responding to it being slow later, keep it in a good spot where we are now. Usually it would mean more money, but we've negotiated twice to bring our prices down over the past few years, but our budget never changed, so really the money's already there, because we're going back to where we were a few years ago, is rate-wise just a lot faster. So that's the first resolution request.
Motion to revise the contract with Spectrum made by Supervisor Sokol, second by Supervisor Wild. Questions, discussion? Supervisor McGowan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I paid for extra for higher speed on my Spectrum there at my house, and then come to read to find out that you actually weren't getting it. I didn't really see much of a difference for the increase, so will you be able to see it? Because I sure didn't.
Yeah, ours is different. When you're at home, you're sharing with everybody on the block. So, you know, during a school day at 10 a.m., it'll probably work good. 3:30, it's going to come to a crawl because the kids are home from school. Ours is a dedicated fiber connection. Same upload, same download. Much different than you have at home. Which is why we pay a lot more, too.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Sokol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would there be a need to go to 400? I mean, did you look into the cost?
Yeah, actually, their next level up was 500, but I got a report from them showing where we're maxing out right now, and we're comfortable in our 100. And so if we go to 200, it should be really good. And the question was, so if we're comfortable now, why do we want to increase it? Except our DA's office has a requirement to share, and they have to share across the internet. A couple other offices are also doing the same thing, and they just want to be ahead of that curve before, instead of reacting to the slowness, get ahead. But yeah, right now I figure
I just didn't know if we need more.
Oh, no, yeah, I think we're still good with 200, because the 100 we're good, and we're going to double it to there. But their next level is 500 for us.
Other questions? I'll call the question then. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
The next resolution request is to ask for $35,000 from the contingent account to upgrade our website. Something I started about a year ago, and the money was kind of set aside, waiting to see how this year went, and after talking nicely to the budget officer, he said now's a good time to bring it back up again. You know, our website, we've done as much as we can do with it technology-wise, but it's just reached a level that you need to be able to have a website that's responsive to all the devices, the way people connect nowadays, more interactive, easier to do things. You know, we just need to upgrade with a service, because it's just where we can't go. And I just think that's where we are, to look professional and make things, the site easier and such like that. You know, one of the big things, you know, like when people come to, you know, watch for meetings and things, you know, we post and then somebody's got to send an email out saying, hey, the agendas are available or they're changed, where actually people can do their own subscriptions from the outside and be notified of changes on the county website in certain areas. So it's easier to use. So I was looking to be able to do that this year.
A motion by Supervisor Hogan, second by Supervisor Wild. Further questions or discussion? Supervisor Wild.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike, are we hosting the tourism sites also?
No, they're outside with their own vendor and service out in the cloud somewhere.
But does it make sense for us to do things together?
Well, we go out to bid, so I guess their vendor would also be part of the bid process, I guess. They're two totally different types of angles. You know, they're, you know, tourism-based, and we're gonna, you know, there's like a whole branch of municipal government-type vendors that focus on what those sites like. But I guess we could, you know, if their vendor contributes, and maybe they would say, hey, we can do it less because we're combining them. I guess I'd find out more, if, you know, because I got like a ballpark.
Yeah, just from a synergy standpoint.
Yep.
We should look at that. Thank you, Mike.
So, Supervisor McGowan.
Oh, yes, thank you. So you're asking this above and beyond your regular budget, or was this figured in, or?
No, well, this is money I don't have that I would need this year to get the budget, or get the website done. And then it would add $5,000 a year to my normal budget for maintenance and updates.
Is this something that maybe, I think, I mean, it's a lot of money to jump into, you know, 1 year, and I see the need for it, but I'm wondering if maybe this is something that we should have a line item for him to maybe plan on doing this every so many years?
Oh, well, when you go with a service, I guess the $5,000 gets you that into the future, so you pay up front, you shouldn't have a big chunk later, you know, to update it in, you know, like 4 or 5 years to the...
All right, so we're...
Excuse me, Supervisor Thomas, did you have some input onto this particular question?
Yeah, Mike requested this money for 2019, and this is one of the items that I as a one-time expense, I removed from the budget. So I think this is one of the last ones. So it's actually was requested last year.
Thank you. Continue, Supervisor McGowan.
That's it, thanks.
Supervisor.
I'm good, I'm good.
Oh, okay. Further questions? Brian.
Do you also need a contract approved with somebody to design the website?
Oh, yeah, we go through purchasing, go through the whole bid process.
Okay.
I kind of work with a couple vendors just to get a ballpark, but because prices change and such, and it takes a while to, you know, for money transfers, I wanted to get this part done, and now work with purchasing to go out to contract or to bid process.
Julie?
And can I just clarify for Mr. Wild, our tourism contract currently goes through the end of 2020. So for us to be able to combine them, we would have to terminate that contract and do the two combine the two RFPs. I don't know if that would be done.
Okay, I'll call the question to move $35,000 from contingent to satisfy this funding request for updating the website. Motion, please. What?
Motion's
We
already
have
had
a
motion.
Motion by, who is that? Ms. Well, okay. We have motion second, thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, thank you. Next.
Last thing, looking at our budget, it's not, you know, it's pretty much unchanged, except for one big request, cybersecurity. We have great hardware, we have subscriptions, everything's good in that area, but everybody has that. So the hyper-focus nowadays on cybersecurity training, the end user, that's the weakest point you've got. And it's one thing to train somebody today, but everything changes every day, and we need to focus on a regular, consistent training and testing of our users. It's not a one-time cost. It's based on the size of the county, I'm looking at like a $12,000 subscription per year to do this, but it's coming up in audits all over the place. We've seen a lot of it, going through a lot of the board of election stuff, they're looking, you know, are you training your people? Like kind of like, you can't take somebody DPW, give them a chainsaw, and you don't train them and they cut their foot off. Well, I think you're irresponsible. And here, we're the same thing. We give you a computer, say, okay, this is the stuff, and a year later, things have all changed, and you click something you shouldn't have, and it's not really their fault. We're not training people. So I've been looking at different programs and what other counties are using. Found one that, you know, seems like it works great. And we did a test here. I could do a free test for, I think, 70-some people, and I think I got 4 out of 70 that clicked a link that shouldn't have, and then we translate that up to 800 people. So it's just growing more and more what we're doing. I think we just need to take an active role to say that we're protecting ourselves and training our people not to be cyber aware.
As well.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Mike. I'm in full support of this. Is this just sample emails that we sent out? Or is there actually kind of like, let's sit down with an individual team and go through this, verbally do a presentation?
So what it does initially, which is great, instead of, so we buy this, we have this dashboard. Instead of me trying to figure it out, they give you a person to work with you, what's your cyber goals. And you can set up a cyber program for the whole year, and it's automated. It'll start sending out emails and different links to test people. They'll notify you of, who didn't, or who did what they shouldn't have done. Notifies that person, says, okay, here's some training based on that. It's not just a video. Then there's some interactive stuff that you have to almost take a test to see if you're there. And it notifies you if people are not doing the training or still not getting it, so you know who to go work with on a one-on-one basis. And also because of the audit thing, I asked that if we do this, that we'd be able to share this, because our rate is based on the bulk. So I asked if we'd be able to share it with the towns. And so we'd be able to have our individual rate here for the towns if they're interested too. So I was talking to one of the supervisors of a small town here, and he was reading, nobody around here, but an audit from a small town somewhere, and they got dinged for not having a cybersecurity program. So this is something we can share with the towns at a cheaper rate too. But yeah, the program was very interactive and not just watch a video for 45 minutes. It was just short videos to keep your attention, take a little test here or there if you need to, and just log all the results. And it's automated because there's 800 people, but then point out the ones that aren't doing it or need help with it.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, with a follow-up. When someone does click on the link, they get extra training?
Yeah.
And if they fail it again?
Yep.
Then what happens?
Then that would be more one-on-one. That we have to kind of, if we keep helping you and you're still not getting it, I guess we'd have to approach, take your computer away, I guess, because if you do something different.
It's serious stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So we need to make sure that we have some kind of controls and responses in there.
Yep.
When I was with GE, I got my hand slapped once. I didn't like it. It was a hard slap because it is so serious. So let's think, if you can kind of expand that, to think about how do we reinforce, and you don't want to do negatively, right, all the time, but this is pretty serious.
Oh yeah. And this, when you click on something you shouldn't, it brings you to a place and says, this is why, this is what you could look for. So it's training there, and like just the constant notifications so we could work with those people. And of the 4 people I got, nobody was upset. I was like, I let the administrator know ahead of time in case he got any complaints when I was fishing people. But yeah, people were like, yes, I know I should have, and they did. So at least now there's an awareness.
Well, that's the problem. Yeah, I knew it, but I shouldn't have.
Yep.
It's serious stuff.
Oh yeah.
But we identify it, we let our supervisors know, we go through this process, or what do?
So this is within my budget that I've requested. This is in the budget.
No, I'm just talking about outside the automated program.
Oh.
Right? So from an HR standpoint, are we letting people know, are we letting the administrators know? Does Ryan know? Does their immediate supervisor know?
That we're going to start fishing
No,
people?
that they failed the test.
Oh, at that point we would, yeah. I think right now I just did a sample one, and I called everybody individually to see, did you really do it, so we can understand the results.
Right.
And but that's as far as I went with the program to see it here. And so in the future, yeah, we'd be talking to supervisors.
Maybe we should think about making that happen, because it is so serious. The consequences are pretty dire.
Yep.
We're going to have a lot of room in the jail next year.
There we go. 15 minutes in the jail. Don't do it again.
Further questions for Mike? All right, anything else, Mike?
Oh, that's all I got.
Good job. Thank you very much. Purchasing now. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning. I'll start with, the first few pages are the stockroom budget. That's a cost we have every year due to the retired employees. Stockroom was demolished back in 2010, and we'll continue to have that cost. I have no control over that. With regard to the purchasing budget, we try to stay status quo. There were some shifts in funding based on current expenses. Our telephone costs went up, but our postage went down. Our data processing and internet fees went down, and our miscellaneous fees and expenses went down from last year, but we had to transfer money into that, so I kind of met that in the middle, or split the difference. So for our contractual expenses, we're actually only $39 over 2019. We increased our revenues. We consistently hit our projections on that, so actually we exceed them. So I doubled that for next year. And our biggest increases came in our employee benefits. Any questions?
Questions? Ms. Wild?
Yeah, this is just a 1.5% increase or about there? So we're looking at the budget? I'm just trying to do the math. 3,000 increase over 270,000.
I didn't do the percentage, but,
Okay, and it's one of the
It's
key things
minor,
I'm
if I
looking
could
for.
make it.
It looks good, Julie, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Other questions? Anything else, Julie?
I do have, a request to review and approve the amended purchasing policy for 2019. I'm a little behind. I took the time finally to go through, and I marked the changes in yellow and green. I don't know, this was sent out with the agenda. I don't know if you want me to go through those changes page by page. Basically, some of it was just making corrections, adding a national purchasing alliance that we became a member of this year. We changed the authority for emergencies from the county attorney to the county administrator. I removed one item from page 9 under commodities that didn't apply and moved that to public works where it should have been all along. And then I added a clause per the treasurer's office to page 23 under the sale of secondhand equipment. They wanted us to track items that are sold that are under our asset threshold. So this addresses that issue and how we're going to handle those in the future.
Vice Sokol? Do we need a motion for that? We do need a motion. Motion made by Supervisor Sokol, second by Supervisor Hogan. Further discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Somebody had a question?
Just a comment, I just think...
Good idea.
Thank you.
The cooperative is a very efficient tool in purchasing and lead the way in that is very helpful for us all. I know a number of the towns. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
That was funny.
Right.
Anything else, Julie?
No, that's it.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Weights and measures. Mr. Herb Levin. How you doing, Herb?
Can't complain, it's in my contract, I can't complain.
Hey, Herb, thank you.
4.
Okay, I have it.
Okay. That'll work. Thank you. You need this also.
Very little difference from last year. The budget summary sheet, there's a $28,578.99 expense from 2018. That's the new truck. It will not exist because it's still almost brand new. So that lowered it. The $700 is for a canopy cover for my Prover, which is sitting out in the parking lot. Hopefully, we'll be able to use the new emergency vehicle building to store that, to keep it safe, because it's a $32,000 piece of equipment over the winter. Personnel services, we based it on last year. It should go down by $10,000. There was a position that involved training the new director, which I'll get to. So overall, the budget goes down by $10,000. Pretty much everything is similar to last year. There's going to be some changes in the retirement expenses, but I don't have any control over that. Which brings me to the fact that come January 10th, I will be retiring. Sort of. Well, the plan is that I would come back as the assistant, per diem, part-time. Right now I have an assistant 1 day a week. He's a retired New York State specialist in weights and measures. He's indicated that he probably won't come back for next year. So, if he does, that's great. I'll step aside. If he doesn't, and it's allowed, I'll come back per diem. And basically, it's a position that, in addition to being an assist to the director, it's also mostly the revenue, packet checking, and some of the things that I just can't do everything myself. Don't have time for it. So, as of right now, he's brought in more revenue than we paid him this year.
Any questions, concerns? Supervisor McGowan?
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, I asked you if this is personal. You're not leaving because we're stressing you out with so much work, are you?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to be 70 in
What?
January. I'm going to be 70 in January.
Oh, my gosh.
And I need
Breathing all those gas fumes in there.
Yeah.
And I need some more time to go skiing.
Well, good for you.
Supervisor Conover?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, yes, it's allowed, and thank you for offering yourself should we lose the deputy for us as an employer. And meeting the mission is a very cost-effective way for us to expand staff, qualified staff, experienced staff when we need it, but not have to carry a lot of staff when we don't need it. So thank you for that offer. And I, for one, certainly support it.
Supervisor Wild?
Mr. Chairman, I'll echo our chairman's comments, but I do have a question for our administrator, super administrator. How's our succession plan? And you don't have to go into specifics, but are we prepared?
We have an individual in mind, and we have a new organizational structure for the department in mind, but we're just putting the final touches on that to make sure it'll work out.
Okay, thank you. Super.
I was going to retire a little sooner, but last year we had absolutely no candidates, qualified candidates. We had scheduled a civil service test. We canceled the civil service test because there was no qualified candidates. This year, hopefully, it'll work out better, and I've extended out to January.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Anything else, Herb? All right. Very good, thank you very much. County Clerk.
I wonder what the qualifications are for that job.
You're looking for another job?
Okay. Well, I'd like to get out what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing, but I need to simplify my life.
This is super good.
I'm going to...
Good morning, Pam.
Good morning. I'm going to just pass around 2 packets for you. Maybe if we could just pass. This is the County Clerk Public Records budget. I think everyone up on the desk has them, but as well, perhaps the second group I would just like to pass, if we maybe set this aside a little bit, it's the smaller budget, so historian and, so this is historian, if you set that aside, please. And the other small one, which we talked about in the past, is the records management. So perhaps if we could focus to start with on the main operations of the county clerk's office, okay?
Get my wheels moved here.
Please take a moment to put them in order.
Do you have one of these?
Yeah, we have.
Can't actually get up from my chair.
Some card is not here. Got these two.
Does everybody have 4 budgets in front of them?
Well, which one?
4 budgets, the county clerk, public records, historian, and records management.
Records management, historian, and county clerk.
And then you have yours in here,
Paper
right?
clerk. Public records.
And one in here.
That's clerk of the board.
I'm sorry, can't see that far.
We do have
No, clerk of the board.
There's 2.
The one with the
Paperclip.
paperclip has it.
Oh, that's the 2. Oh, gotcha. All right, yes, 4.
Okay, perhaps one way to start with these budgets, just a quick overview and just a few points before you raise your questions. So A1410 County Clerk, just a point about that, a couple points about that. Does the main budget for the county clerk, D&B, pistol permits, everything that we do down there. A1410 County Clerk does include all of the revenue that comes into the county clerk's office.
We have extras up here. Sort them out, Brad.
I mean, do we have an opener or all these? Oh, all right.
There's 2 in that
County
paper.
clerk.
County clerk, that's not mine. I don't know what that is.
I just handed you.
For the board? Okay.
What does that one look like?
They're all for the board.
This is right here. County clerk.
Yeah, that's what it is.
All 3 of these.
All right, there, okay, that's where we look, all right.
Got it.
So the lesson, Pam, is just give us one at a time.
I know.
There's too much paper.
Yes, there is too much favor. Okay. All right, let's just a quick review. You have in front of you the county clerk, A1410.
Got it.
Okay, main principal budget for the county clerk's office, First of all, it includes all revenue that does come into the county clerk's office. That includes your motor vehicle use tax, your clerk fees, your mortgage tax, which is local and additional, and also the clerk internet sales. So those 4 codes, revenue codes, are seen under the county clerk. The majority of expenses, your 1400s, your 200s and 400s, are also reflected in this particular budget, A1410. Clerk's office, DMV, pistol permits. And then, of course, just to note that 15 of the 20 county employees are reflected in this budget as well. 15 county clerk, DMV are reflected in this budget. So that's what we're looking at, the 1410. Because revenue is a significant part of this budget and important to the county, a couple notes. The automobile use tax. This is not what comes in the DMV, okay, in the office. This is motor vehicle use tax, a separate revenue account. And that has been holding pretty much 41,000 is our estimate on that one when we went through the review process earlier in August. We're just about averaging 41. The month of August actually turned out, or month of July actually turned out to be 42,000. So we're really in the ballpark. So we're projecting that we're going to continue on in that way, and we're using that as our basic thought process for the coming year. Yes, we could go up. We'll probably bring in a little bit more than that, than the 480,000, but that is a kind of a standard revenue amount right now, a conservative approach to it. So we were good with that when we went through the process back in August. The clerk fees, these include anything that doesn't go somewhere else. These are the fees that come in, recording fees, copy charges, pistol permit fees, passports, those kinds of fees that come in and then eventually at the end of each month are transferred to the county treasurer. It also does include the DMV that comes in over the counter in the DMV office. So just a note about, and that's that amount from the DMV into the county 1255 is pretty considerable. Mortgage tax. We've had several discussions about mortgage tax in the last year. You know where we stood at the beginning of 2019 with the omission from the state legislature, so that delayed the collecting of a second local tax until April. So we've looked at this in many different ways over the last, basically the last year when we started last year on this. Some question about how 2019 will end up. I think we're close. We're on 61%, I think, of getting to our budgetary goals for 2019. But looking for 2020, when we are going to be collecting both the additional and the local for 12 months, I'm thinking that we originally had a goal of this year of 1.7 million. We're going to project a little bit down from that for purposes of budgeting to 1,680,000. And actually that's up a little bit since our August review that we had here for the budget, where we thought, well, maybe 1.6. So everything changes, month to month. We're looking at it very closely. So basically how we got to that figure is we looked, we knew the additional tax was 12 months. We were fine with that. The local tax we just looked at, because we didn't start collecting it until April, we looked at April to August. So, and we will again look April to September and so on through the balance of the year. But I think our projections, our average of $156,000 per month, seems to be a relatively stable figure, and so we are proposing $1,680,000 for mortgage tax for 2020, and we're very happy if it goes up higher than that. We've always been, just to note, we've always been very conservative about these tax collection fees, very conservative. Even the years when it went up considerably more, we still kept a very conservative approach. The last piece of revenue that we have is the clerk internet sales, and that's actually tied to our contract for the EDMS system that runs the clerk's office, the technology component, the electronics that run our office. A part of that contract called for is the setup of putting our public records online, where people could view them 24/7, and then also purchase copies. And so that has been going on since 2009, actually. We generated, I think last year, about $44,000. We're on cue to do 45 for 2019. I'm sure we will do that, and we will also project 45,000 for it for 2020. So it seems to be very kind of a stable thing. Yes, every so often you have members of the public just maybe doing a one-time transaction, but others of those transactions are from commercial enterprise out there, mortgage lenders, banks, title companies nationwide. So they seem to be the ones that go to that kind of service. So those that is the focus of our revenue.
Supervisor McGowan, excuse me, Pam.
Go ahead.
Yeah, before we get too long, I have to backtrack, but on 1136, the automobile use tax, that's not the county road use tax, is it?
Not called that.
Well, I remember when it first came out, it was confusing. It said use tax, $20, added on to our registration.
Yep.
Then it was explained to me that it was county road use tax. It was, for, and then I saw that it was changed. It said county road use tax. It was an extra fee that was supposed to go, I thought, toward our roads, which I didn't have a problem paying since I use these roads, 98% of the time. So, and I brought this up in the past, I want to know where that money was going. So this automobile use tax, now it's an automobile use tax, and it's not the county road use tax anymore.
It has always been motor vehicle use tax. It goes into the county fund. It goes into the general fund. That's where it goes.
But when it was confusing, I thought it changed to the county road use tax at one particular time since it's born, and I'm not arguing because I'll look at that, because I questioned when it first came out, it was $20 more, because it just said use tax. And I'm like, I'll be darned if I want to pay more tax to use a road in New York, and then it was explained to me that it was county, so the next 2 years later, my register, I thought it said county use tax. I'm like, it made me feel better that, because I don't mind giving to my county.
Right. It is a county tax. We applied for that through home rule back in 20.
So maybe it said county use tax, not county roads, All right, I'm just, as long as...
It is a local law and it's well defined, and of course,
I just wanted to make sure that money was staying with us, and New York wasn't taking a piece like they have a tendency to want to do.
okay, yes,
Thank you.
One point about the use tax, it is collected no matter where you do your registration. So if you're over in Washington County, and you're processing a reg out over in Washington or any other county, that is still being collected for Warren County. Okay.
Oh, cool.
So,
Oh, thank you.
if you're out visiting your friends in Niagara, and you decide you're there for the week or something, you say, I need to do this, that comes back to Warren County all the time. Okay. So, and that is collected by the state, they go through their system, and then they send that check to the Warren County Treasurer's Office, and it's deposited into this account.
Cool. Thank
Okay?
you. Thank you,
Thanks for
Mr. Chairman.
bringing that up.
Supervisor Conover.
Yeah, Dan, I think you're very wise to be very conservative on that mortgage revenue. That can vary depending on interest rates, lending rates, and in a recession or even a softening of the economy. That's one of the first revenue streams to really take a nosedive. So that can, any of us that have chased it down last time realize, how much that can drop. So I applaud your moving now.
Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to wait to the end of the clerk's presentation, but I truly appreciate narratives to budget worksheets. It really helps me answer questions that I'd be raising my hand every second in order to get specific. So I don't know how long you've been doing it that way, but continue to do it that way. I appreciate it.
Yeah, the comments are, let me just reiterate, that's awesome. As I go through this, I can read your intent and your comments, and I wish all the budgets were done that way.
Well, it's helpful to me too as well, so I'm glad that we can work together for this. When it comes to as I said, our personnel, salary schedules, we have some reducing the overtime, getting full staffing in the DMV, and we have some part-time, and those positions are in place for for permanent appointment, I hope, as soon as the testing is completed. You may see some negotiation factors coming in. I don't know, that's down the road, but basically, we actually had, under the salary schedule, many changes over the summer because our office was affected by many changes. We had a deceased person, we had provisional appointments to fill, we had vacancies, we had a transfer out and then a transfer in. So we have been changing all summer long, right up through 9/11 was our last change. So, but I think the actual adjustment in the budget actually stands to maybe come in a little bit less when that salary schedule finally settles. Our furniture, really, for coming in 2020, nothing substantial there. Back down to standard office equipment that needs replacement. And then as we go through the contractuals, your 400s, we go up a little bit. We kind of look at each one of them, what they're doing, and our telephone's going to go down a little bit. But I project that postage may be going up a little bit. So one of the larger figures you'll see here under the 425 on the county clerk is the reproduction expenses, and that is your and our contract for the electronic document management system. It is let me see, 2013 we did that contract. It's now in year 2 of an extension. It gets up to 5 years on an extension. So we look at that each year to see if it's still serving us the best way. But that's an unchanging figure as well. Basically, contractuals, the 400s are pretty reasonable, very little change, plus minus. And that basically is the county clerk's further questions for the county clerk.
Okay, next.
Thank you. So the next major part of the clerk's office is your public records. County clerk's office has been set up with these two budgets for a very, very long time, and so they continue to be the force by which we run our finances. Public records, just a word about that, you won't see any revenue there. It all comes in through the clerk's office. There's no revenue listed there unless we have applied for a grant for records management funding. The minor expenditures are basic expenditures, confidential recycling, digital conversion, off-site storage of microfilm, archival management supplies, and equipment maintenance. They usually fall into that category under our 400, under 1665. And as far as staffing, that's incorporated into this in salary schedules. You're dealing with 5 employees, 3 full-time and 2 part-time. And so again, you're just dealing with your salary schedule and then your general supplies. And we have, I believe the benefit package looks like there's a little bit of an increase there. I think that's certainly that's not in our control. The contractuals, the 400s are down a little bit, and the salary, the 100s for your salary are, as it works out in the budget, again, that's not in my control.
Yeah, excuse me, would you say again why there's nothing in 2019? That was
Why, in 2019, in which part?
every place. There's nothing but zeros. Records management, right?
Oh, no, public records.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Okay?
Wonderful.
I'm sorry.
Good, so we'll bring that up.
I was wondering why no one... Okay.
So to review, yeah, public records hasn't really changed too very much. It's mostly standard operating expenses. Are we okay?
Okay. All set for public records? Okay.
The historian also comes under the county clerk for purposes of just budget. And that's a very small budget there. With some minor expenses and the part-time salary schedule that we have for the historian office. And very minor revenue. Discussion about that is that the historian, who's this individual, works very hard. In years gone by, we might have gotten a little revenue from basically copies that are made in the office and so on. But these days, the historian does more community outreach into the town, and he's also referring people to online resources so that they can do the research themselves rather than relying on the historian himself to do it for them. So it's just a small budget and standard operating procedure for that office. Are there any questions about our historian? His name is Stan Sanfarano. Wonderful individual.
Okay.
The last one is the records management, and actually, Supervisor, you will see something in the 2019 amended, which just went through your last board meeting. So the county received a records management grant for the total amount for 2019-2020 cycle is total $74,100. And so for purposes of getting started, we have the 2019 being amended for $37,050, and the second half of it being done for the 2020 year. So, if we were to run this maybe in another week or so, we'll probably see the $37,550 under the 2019 as well.
All right, very good.
So,
Supervisor Wild.
so it looks like we don't spend any money for records management unless we get a grant.
Well, you know, there are certain costs that are borne from within the department under the public records, but if we have special projects, then we try to go through that resource.
So, following up with Supervisor Wild's question, we're still doing the work.
Yes. Yes. The work of the records management comes under the RSC downstairs, which is under the county clerk, and the public records room. So that's the area that that's where you would see that on a daily basis. The services that we provide to the departments that store with us, the back file conversions that we do for court, it's all built into our daily process. But there are special needs that come up, and that's when this grant program is particularly helpful to Warren County and to all counties, and municipal governments as well.
Supervisor Hogan.
We've had a lot of conversation with the courts about how their lives are about to change. How is it going to impact courts?
Are you referring to the e-filing with the courts? Okay, so the Supreme Court went to e-filing in May of 2018. It is selected. There are certain types of court filings that are exempt and not included in it. I expect those to roll out. The biggest area is in actually the hands-on scanning of those additional court papers that come in, so 100,000 of them, would not be physically scanned in our office. The rest of the processing of the work remains the same, whether we're looking at paper or we're looking at electronic. But we do see it in terms, and then the file integrity, of course, is very essential, a very important part of that. So, but generally speaking, those with the Supreme Court do like it very much, and our transition into it went rather well.
Other questions for County Clerk? Anything else, Pam?
Just a short word, I suppose you have seen things about the DMV regarding the plates, the license plates, so there were efforts by many county clerks and legislators, including our own legislators representing Warren County, and the governor has pulled back on that for right now. We will continue to look closely at it, but we're glad that he and the executive office saw that they needed to re-examine what they were originally thinking for license plates. There's no question that there are certain license plates that are appealing and present problems. We address those in the office, and so we'll see what the rest of the story holds about license plates. But we appreciate the support that we had on it.
So when someone's license plate, and I drove behind one today, had nothing on it. What are their options? Do they have to pay for that, or can they just bring it
No,
up?
they can come in and then we'll replace it at no fee. They'll get a different, they'll get a new plate right then.
Okay, very good. Okay, Supervisor McGowan.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, just because you do see them, and after parking so many cars this weekend, it's amazing. I saw quite a few. But what is the responsibility of that person? Wouldn't you think that they say, oh, I can't see my license plate, I'm going to go in and replace it, so. I like that idea, it's for free, so.
Yeah, we do take care of them.
So I'll let people know that they can go down there and do it for nothing. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're doing the work.
I won't talk to those people, all right?
No, don't talk to them.
Yeah, we have to.
Pam, is that the same for vanity plates, if they're peeling?
Those are handled through the License Bureau, so vanity, I don't think we can, because
But if they're peeling, that's not
Yeah.
the driver's
There has
fault.
to be order on them because obviously we can't just give you,
Gotcha. Thanks, Pam.
So, I met a lot of some people from your neck of the woods.
When you were working?
Yeah, I live up there. Actually, some of these girls, they slept in their cars. And then just, you got out of there so late, you had to be back. Thank you. Funny, they slept in their cars, so we're gonna work on that.
Slept in their cars.
Yeah. 4 hours.
Right, so it's always driving an hour back.
Right.
Crazy.
They're bold on that.
Good morning, Carla.
Good morning. I apologize for being late.
You're fine. All right, Carla's our auditor. Go ahead, please.
Everyone a copy. So, most of this I have no control over because I have a pretty small budget. The contractual expense section is really what I have control over, changing the amounts in. Most of them are pretty much the same from the past few years. Supplies have stayed the same. Telephone went up because the way our abstract was done by IT changed to make it more accurate. So mine, which used to be, you see the 2019 adopted, it was only $25 a year. Now that I'm actually being charged correctly, I'm putting it up to $250 a year. Membership and dues, I'm increasing to $320 because I would like to have my current senior account clerk also be a member of the association that I am, which is the Institute of Internal Auditors, so that she can access that information as well. The data processing and internet, that is something that IT sets, and they just give me the amount to put in. I am asking to increase travel, education, and conference from $1,000 to $2,000. I am pursuing a designation of certified internal auditor, so that includes some testing. I actually have my first test on Friday, and there's 2 more parts to that I'm hoping to complete next year. So that's why I'm increasing that portion. Any questions on that?
Okay, questions? Supervisor Hogan?
Was that,
Can you speak up a little bit, please?
does that education and certification, what does that do for the county? Just asking, no, I'm not being...
No, that's fine. There's just, when I took this position, there wasn't anything that I was aware of that gave more universal guidance on auditing. It was just, well, this is the county policy and this is how we've always done things. So I wanted to pursue to make sure that the way we were auditing and taking care of our office was more universal and the correct way, really. So I pursued this to help me be in line with what auditors around the globe, really, because it's an international corporation.
Cool. Thank you.
Other questions for Carla? Supervisor Wild?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Carla, you help audit our contracts.
Payments on contracts.
So I've always asked about our management of contracts and how it seems like a lot of things slip through the cracks. Case in point, our D&G contract for recycling. So do we kind of rely on our department heads to do this, to manage the details of the contracts. I'd like to see a tighter look at that. Is that something that your office can do? To kind of go through a contract and say, are we doing A, B, C, and D? When's the last time we looked at those?
I do somewhat. D&G didn't come through my office because they pay us. So that's not something that I've ever looked at. Some of the other ones that we pay on and maybe require annual reporting or some other term of the contract that requires the department to do something, I do try to reach out to them and, okay, so have you, because I don't need to see the reports, are you receiving these?
And I do make sure, before we release retainage, I reach out to the engineer who handles that contract to make sure that, those 20 different things that are required in the contract have actually been done. I don't necessarily see all those things, but I do reach out to either the department head or whoever is handling that contract to make sure that some of those things are done. Granted, it's not all of it,
No,
because
of
I'm
course.
handling the payment portion of it.
Of course.
But if there is something that's required prior to payment, I do reach out to the departments to make sure that it's been done.
And what percentage do you, if I might follow up, what percentage do actually, let's do a serious audit. Show me the paperwork that this was done. How often do we do that?
A lot of times they'll send it with, I'm trying to
Okay.
think of a specific instance. Off the top of my head, there's nothing that I can think of at this moment.
Can we build that into next year where you just, grab one contract from each department and line by line? Is that something that you can handle with your bandwidth, or is that?
Well, I'm not an attorney, first of all. So,
No, I
I mean,
understand.
the payment stuff, we look at closely, and more, I'll say more close than years past, we definitely have. And I can, if that's the direction that you'd like me to take, I can be more involved.
I may be singular in terms of this, but I've managed a whole bunch of contracts in my professional career prior to this. And I feel we have some gaps. So, and I've also been involved with auditors coming in and auditing my responsibilities in the past, and it's always, well, these guys look at everything. So I just wondered how deep we went. That's all. And I'm not sure if this should go to the county attorney or not. And there's a side conversation up there, but
You want a little bit more checks and
I
balances.
want some more checks and balances.
Yep.
And granted, the DGs, we're not paying, they're paying us.
Right.
But the elements that I'm referring to are, for example, just for that one, how the equipment was maintained, how the grounds were maintained, the individual details within the contract that impact us and could impact us in a very serious way in the long term, not necessarily in the short term from a financial standpoint. But I'm not sure where it belongs,
Well,
Mr. Chairman.
just to, Carla takes care of the payments, but our committees communicate with all the departments. So we have 10 departments for the support services. As each one comes in, they're the ones responsible for monitoring their contracts. So we can address it to each one of the, for instance, if Carla has contracts, or the Board of Elections has contracts, we can direct it directly to them. They're the ones that know the details of what they need and what they're paying and whether we're getting the service that we're paying for. That's the way it stands right now.
I'm not sure how I go about this, but maybe it's not quite part of a budget conversation. I'm totally fine with your budget, but it's something that I feel that we need to be looking at going forward, just to have some audit of contracts. And maybe it's Mary's office. I don't know where it comes from. But I feel that we have to have a tighter look at this. And actually, from an audit standpoint, one contract a year from each department, go through the fine-tooth comb. Are we doing the things? And not what the department heads use this contract. No, we just pick one out of the air and almost do an audit. That we need to do that, those kind of things, to make sure that the right things are happening. It's a request to look at how do we do that.
I think if you want the auditor, similar to what the state comptroller would do, to come in and do an audit of a program for another county department, you're going to have to give her more staff.
If we were to do that, what kind of temporary staff would we need?
Well, we need at least one other person, because right now we're an office of 2. So we don't have a ton of downtime, and it would probably be somebody that was more trained in
Contract
the other
language?
portion of the contracts rather than than the financial aspect of it.
Let me just table this. Brian, maybe we can talk about how we can do this.
Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Chairman Driscoll. Chairman.
Meeting.
Are you wishing that something,
Make a note, Chairman Conover.
Years ago, in my past profession, there was a federal directive called, I believe it was A110, which changed the policies from single program audits to single agency audits. And it saved a ton of money without compromising the inner workings of individual budgets. I don't disagree with Supervisor Wild. I think we need to be able to check that. But it was done probably close to 30 years ago to certainly substantially decrease money that organizations, not-for-profits, and I believe even government entities were spending on individual audits. Basically, you're picking, you're spending a lot of time when you could have just done it in one, essentially lump sum type of an audit. So that's one of the reasons why.
Dan, if I can just elaborate, I don't want it to be punitive, I want it to be kind of educational. That's what I'm looking for.
Quality assurance.
Thank you.
But again, good point.
We'll continue it
Okay.
again when it pops up.
We had other questions from Carla. Anything else, Carla?
I do have one other point, which kind of ties in a little bit to the contract issue, is that in recent years, we've gotten much more involved in contracts specifically and what we're asking our departments to do and to provide to us and what we look for. And in line with that, I'm looking to kind of make our salaries a little bit more equitable to the further work that we're doing. Mine is based on whatever you guys decide to give me. My senior account clerk, I'm looking and have been speaking with HR and personnel into making her possibly a principal audit clerk. With that, she would get more responsibilities. When she started, she was an audit clerk, and she is a phenomenal employee. And so little by little, she gets more responsibilities as she's been in the position longer and learned more. My ultimate goal is to make her a deputy auditor so that when it comes time for me to retire, she is primed to step into my shoes and knows and is capable and has the responsibility that I do. And I think that she is more than capable of that. And with the responsibility that we have specifically with contracts, I had a note. We approved through my office over $52 million last year. And out of that, over $26 million was based on a contract code. So it is an extensive amount of looking at these contracts that we do in our office, and it is two of us. So when I'm not there, she gets the questions that I would normally field. So I am looking to make things more equitable and to compensate her for the amount of responsibility that she does have.
Is that something we have to consider in this committee, or where does that fall into the process?
This is a union position, so the way to do that, as Carla mentioned, is to, if it's appropriate, to do a reclassification of the position. So that'll be something that we work on with HR and the Civil Service Department, Trish Nenninger.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I believe it's been registered as a budget request for 2020, and the budget officer will take a look at that along with all the others.
Good. Anything else? Ms. Hogan?
Thank you.
I was going to comment, I said, what is it with these county employees? She's getting ready to retire, she looks like she's 28.
Don't say you're from pushing 70, we just got shocked.
Thank you very much, Carla.
Thank you.
You. What do you do this public sector stuff, private sector stuff? Yours? Great.
Okay, who wants to go first?
Hers was surprising.
Mary, why don't you?
Amanda?
No, I'll go, it's fine.
Just coming out? Good morning.
Which one?
You?
Yes.
County Attorney.
I do actually have an action item first. So I think 2 months ago, we talked about the fact that the McNulty case settled. They settled for $99,000. We now need to pay the county deductible. We got a bill for that. So I'm just requesting that the $50,000 come from contingency because I don't have that in my budget to pay it.
Motion?
Well,
Motion by Supervisor Wild. Second. Supervisor McGowan. Questions?
are there any other options?
I was just thinking about that. We can, let's do, let's run a report for the insurance codes and see if there's any money left over in any of the insurance codes for any of the departments that haven't, that we're not gonna need to pay that out. Maybe we can come up with a few thousand out of there.
Can we bring that in for a motion?
Does that have to be part of this?
We'll leave it to finance to approve the actual codes that we use, but this will be approval of payment of the deductible with the appropriate budget transfer.
Okay, that's what the motion is. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay, and next is my budget. Let me just pull my notes out. Okay, so I'll start with my revenue. The revenue in my office actually comes from the foreclosure process. So when we get a list of the properties that are in default in our office, we start to run abstracts on those properties, and that's basically a title search to see if the county wants to take that property in the foreclosure. So the number that we put in our budget is based off of 420 abstracts being done this year. We do have over 400 properties in the foreclosure this year, which is extremely high. We don't usually start with that many properties. We did a round of courtesy letters already, and we actually expanded those courtesy letters to include lien holders, because we're hoping that if we get the lien holders involved earlier in the process, that either they'll come in and pay the taxes on these properties, or they'll put some pressure on the homeowners to pay the taxes. We've had a lot of people come in and pay the taxes between the time we sent out the letters and now, and I don't know what to contribute that to, but so far it looks like people are coming in to pay the taxes, so that's good. But that is what our revenue is based off of, is those abstract fees that we then charge back to the property owner when they come in and pay their taxes. All right, so moving on to furniture, we left the same as last year. The same with office equipment. We increased our supplies to $12,000, and that's because this year, as of the time we did our budget, we weren't going to have enough to cover the cost going forward this year. So we did have to move some money. And just so you know, our supplies also cover the printing costs for the foreclosure process, so that changes year to year. It depends on how many properties are in the foreclosure, and last year we had to do some extra printing, so that cost is a little higher for us. And based on the number of properties in the foreclosure already this year, it looks like that number is going to increase for us as well. So that's why we increased the supply budget. We left repair and maintenance the same. We increased our telephone budget to $600, and that's again because for some reason this year we don't have enough to finish out the year. So we increased that for next year. We left postage the same, and again, this is for all the foreclosure mailings, and because we have so many properties this year, we wanted to leave that the same, even though we didn't spend the whole amount last year. We reduced our subscriptions to $3,400. That was a suggestion by the budget officer, and that was fine with us. We increased our membership dues slightly, and that's because I now have, I think, one other attorney that I would like to get into the county attorney's membership. And that's important for us because it gives us all of our CLE credits. So if we go to all the CASNY conferences, we get all of our CLE credits through those. We don't have to do anything extra or pay extra. We increased our data processing to $2,150, and that's basically just our filing program and our internet fee. And that's exactly what we need to pay it for the year. Advertising, we left at $6,000, and again, that comes with the foreclosure process when we have to provide all the legal notices to the properties in the foreclosure. Our consulting line used to be $48,000, and for some reason we put Nixon Peabody in there last year, so we took that down to zero this year, and we moved I think only $30,000 over into legal and transcript fees. So now we'll just pay Nixon Peabody out of our legal code instead of our consulting code. So we did take that down all the way to zero. We left miscellaneous at $750. I have no idea what that's used for. So we left the money in there. Legal transcript fees, like I said, we moved money into that to cover Nixon Peabody and pay them out of legal transcript, and our labor attorneys also come out of legal and transcript. And we left our mileage the same. And that is my budget.
By the way, that's the definition
I thought you were being really optimistic with the Nixon Peabody going away. I was like, oh! No.
Mary, would you clarify again, what, with the increased number of foreclosures, why are the revenues down?
So last year's revenue actually included a grant from the state.
Last year being 2018 or 2019?
2019, I'm sorry. So 2019 included a grant from the state for Raise the Age. And we were hoping that they would give us some money from the Raise the Age legislation. They did not do that. So we just took that out of our budget for 2020.
Thank you. Any other questions for the county attorney's budget? Okay, anything else, Mary?
Oh, that's it, sir.
Very good. How about if we go to you now, Mayor?
Sure. So mine, I already passed out. Mine's the support for clerk of the board. I managed 9 different budgets, so rather than go through them all, I did a summary sheet. It's on the back of the agenda page. Pretty much everything has gone down. You can see there our reproduction, this is in the first section, is the A1010 budget. That's the legislative board's budget. We did decrease reproduction expenses by $1,300. That's the proceedings book. We went to a different vendor that was cheaper, and we took the minimum order. We're trying to switch mostly to a digital format. We can put it on our website, we can email it, all of that. So we just took what we had to, and we were able to decrease that expense by $1,300. And that'll be per year, assuming that the price of production doesn't go up. Memberships and dues, you'll see in 427, that's up by $1,314, but you'll see if you look down further in the clerk of the board, there's a corresponding decrease. Last year we paid for the National Association of Counties dues from the clerk of the board's budget because we had the money there, and this year for budgeting purposes we put it under the legislative board where it should be. So it's increased, but it's decreased on the other side. Data processing internet went up by $12. That's just what IT told us we needed to put in. Consulting fees, that's one, we get an invoice from the treasurer's office every year. That's what environmental capital charges. They do annual reporting for bond agencies. They were anticipating a $100 increase, so it may happen, it may not, but we put it in there just in case. The foods budget, we're going down by $200. We had increased that. We don't think we need it. We're going down.
Yes, we do.
No. Under contracts, That one's showing a decrease of $99,000. It's really not a decrease overall, it's just a decrease for this budget. The $100,000 that we paid to the Lake George Park Commission for invasive species is going to come out of a capital project this year instead of out of this budget. But then the Historical Society did request an additional $1,000, so overall it's a $99,000 decrease for this budget, but $100,000 is coming out of a different pocket.
Which pocket will that be?
It's going to be out of capital project, H382.
Under whose department?
I'm not sure whose department it was. The treasurer's office just advised that's where the money is, and that's where it's coming out of. I did not look that up.
I believe it's planning.
Planning. Thank you.
So that's pretty much for the legislative. For the clerk, we decreased supplies by $500 just based on what we spent this year. We think we can do with less. Telephone went up by $276. That's what IT told us our cost would be. And then again, the memberships went down by $13.40, but that's for the NACO membership that we're switching to the legislative board. For justices and constables, medical examiners, budget officer, we have no changes there. Unallocated insurance, that's our portion of the bill that the self-insurance administrator gives us. She is estimating a decrease of $2,013.52, which is good. Under municipal association dues, the NISAC membership is up by $215, and then Southern Adirondack Library and APA Local Government Review Board looks like the overall summary. The budgets themselves are in the packet too. If you have any
Questions for Amanda?
Is there a reason you go last?
No, almost.
I'm hoping you'll be tired and won't want to talk anymore.
Anything else, Amanda?
No, that's all I have.
Thank you very much. And last will be our administrator.
Thank you. We do have one item for a resolution, which is it's number 2 on the agenda, which is the payroll rules policy amendment. We have a committee, it's chaired by my office and the treasurer's office, and the HR department participate in that. And every now and then there are issues that come up with payroll matters that it's a gray area or it's not clear, and we will compile all of those issues and then we'll meet on them. Tammy, do you want to give a little insight into the...
Sure. A few years ago, we went from we used to do vacation in either 4-hour or 8-hour blocks. Now we do an hour block. So any references to a half-a-day vacation, there is no half-a-day vacation anymore. We're just removing them out. That was it.
Does that, if I may ask a question, does that cover if someone says I have a doctor's appointment? Or I have to...
This was specific vacation, but sick time is usually used in an hour increment. What that spoke to is, we used to have in the policy, it talks about if you took a half-a-day vacation, but if you were an 8-hour employee, you use half-a-day vacation would be 4 hours of vacation. You would need 4 hours of time, would be 4 hours of work time in order to make up that 8-hour day. Now there's no such thing as a half-day vacation. Now it's use 2 hours of vacation, 1 hour, you could use more, yeah, but the whole idea that there's a half-day vacation.
Thank you.
Do we need a motion?
Yes.
Motion.
We need a motion, yes. Motion made by Supervisor Wild, second by Supervisor Hogan. Further questions? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you. Going on to the budget, not a whole lot of change here. Start with the administrator's office, which is Department 1011. And the only increase under the contractual expenses is the telephone, which, as you've heard from other departments, we revised the methodology there, and every department has a change going into 2020.
No revenue?
Pardon?
No revenue?
Nope. We gave it all to the county clerk.
Change that for...
Moving on to the mailroom, if there are no questions. We decreased postage here, decreased data processing a little bit, not a whole lot that we can do. It's a small budget. Any questions?
No.
The next one, 1671, the print shop. This is the internal billing. Departments will put their orders in, we'll process the orders in the print shop and then bill it back to the departments, so the expenses and the revenues equal. It's a net zero. All right. And then the final section is Westmount, 4530. These are the legacy costs for the nursing home. It's mainly, it's actually almost entirely benefits. The salary, the part-time salary, that's been a carryover from prior years. Before my time, we had the idea of having a part-time person manage the runouts, if you will, at Westmount. We haven't seen the need to fill that position, so we're going to propose deleting it for next year's budget. So that salary budget will come down, as well as the benefits associated with it. And we'll be left with the workers' comp and the retiree hospitalization. And those fees, very small amounts in there. I believe that's for Clements. He's chasing after the private pay revenue. This budget's also gone down. I don't recall what was in the miscellaneous fees. That's a theme for today. I think that was, we used to have software in here, right?
That's what we used to pay out the payouts that we did this year.
Right.
Okay.
The Medicaid and the city tax.
Okay. Oh, right, and that's the other piece. In addition to Clements, we do still have to have some software to process old. Is it Medicaid? And again, this comes out of the reserve. Doesn't impact the general fund. The reserve is in a healthy condition, and actuarially, this reserve should last a lot longer since the county did the United Healthcare for retirees.
Brian, did you say part-time, we're eliminating the part-time, and yet it's still in the budget?
So the way the system works is in the department request, our payroll system will spit out whatever's active right now, whatever positions are active, and the mechanism to change that is to have the Board of Supervisors approve a deletion of a position or a creation of a position. So that would be in the budget officer's recommendations, and then the board would act on it.
Okay. Questions for Ryan?
I do have, we didn't talk about this, Ryan. We probably have, I just don't recall. There is a revenue in 2019 of $73,750. That revenue is through some kind of settlement we may have had? Is that what that is?
What section are you looking at?
I'm looking at page 1 of 2, just behind your cover page on public nursing home.
Oh, on the nursing home.
That's what we're talking about, right?
Or is it the money that Tom Clements has brought in?
Which code are you looking at?
Looking at 2401.
2401. That is probably because of the change in our investment policy. The county treasurer, when we earn interest on a reserve, the county treasurer will actually, that we won't sweep that into the general fund, we'll have the reserve earn that interest. We, this year, had more favorable interest rates. We essentially were going to go with the system NICLAS. There were a couple of resolutions on that, and as a result of the board approving those resolutions, we got better interest rates from Glens Falls National, so we've kept all our money locally.
So the final one is, we don't expect any revenue in 2019, 2020?
Well, we're not going to budget that, because that revenue is not going to end up in the general fund, it's going to end up in the reserve. So, for
Right.
budgeting purposes, it's one and the same.
I understand, thank you.
It'll just be a favorable variance at the end of the year for what we need to pull out of the reserve.
Got it.
Any further questions for Ryan on the budget? Anything else, Ryan?
That's all.
Okay. Anything else to come before support services? All right. Seeing none, I'll get motion for adjournment. Supervisor Hogan, second by Supervisor Wild. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, folks. We are
Thank you,
adjourned.
Mr. Chairman, and everyone.